What if the God you are praying to is merely the gatekeeper? Now imagine you are standing in a vast, ancient cathedral. You look up. You see a ceiling painted with clouds, angels, and a radiant sun. You kneel. You pray to that painted image, believing it is the true sky. But what if I told you that the voice answering you wasn't coming from the heavens? What if it was merely the echo of your own desperate plea, bouncing off a stone roof built to keep you inside? For 2,000 years, humanity has been trapped in this room. Most people are content with the painted ceiling. They find safety in the script they were given at birth. But not you. You are not here by accident. You are here because for a long time, you have felt a glitch in the simulation. A gnawing sense that the God you were told to fear, the one who gets angry, picks sides, and demands worship, feels too human, too limited. That feeling is not blasphemy. It is memory. The truth is, the most dangerous teaching of Jesus, the secret he whispered only to his inner circle, was erased. They burned the texts. They hunted the messengers. They did everything to ensure you never found the key that unlocks the cage. A key called the monad. Not a god on a throne, not a judge, but the source before the source, the God beyond God. In the next few minutes, we are going to retrieve that key. We are going to dismantle the ceiling so you can finally see the real sky. To understand the monad, you must first perform a difficult act of mental surgery. You must remove the image of God that culture has tattooed onto your subconscious. We have been conditioned to view the divine as a superparent, a cosmic manager who makes decisions, picks sides, gets angry, and demands loyalty. But ask yourself, does the ocean demand loyalty from the fish? Does the sun decide which flower to shine upon? Of course not. They simply exist. And because they exist, life is possible. This is where the ancient Gnostics drew a line in the sand, a line that got them killed. They taught that the God of personalities, the one with human emotions like jealousy and wrath, is not the ultimate. That entity is merely the storm raging on the surface of the water. Loud, powerful, sometimes destructive. But the monad? The monad is the 5-mile deep ocean beneath that storm. Total silence, total stillness. Yet it holds the power to crush or create worlds effortlessly. The ancients didn't use the word monad to describe a person you talk to. They used it to describe a frequency you tune into. It is not a being, it is the ground of being. In the Apocryphon of John, a text hidden for centuries in the Egyptian desert, this secret is written in code. It is the invisible spirit. It is not correct to think of it as a god or like a god, for it is more than a god. Let that sink in. More than a god. Reality flows out of the monad, the way heat radiates from a fire, or fragrance drifts from a rose. It is not an act of will, it is an act of nature. It is pure, undifferentiated consciousness. Why did the church work so hard to hide this definition? Because if God is a personality outside of you, you are a subject. You must obey. You need a priest to mediate. You need a book to tell you the rules. But if God is the monad, the field of infinite potential consciousness, then you are not a subject. You are a ray of that light. And you don't need a mediator to talk to your own source, any more than a wave needs a mediator to talk to the ocean. So if Jesus knew about this infinite source, why didn't he just say it plainly? Why speak in parables and riddles? Think about the time he lived in. To speak against the established religious order was a death sentence. To tell people that the god of their temple was a lesser deity would have ended his mission before it began. So Jesus became a master of encryption. He hid the truth in plain sight, using words that sounded safe to the authorities but carried a radioactive charge for those with ears to hear. Let's reread his most famous lines through the lens of the monad. Suddenly, the confusion vanishes. When Jesus said, "The Father and I are one," the church interpreted this as a claim to exclusive divinity. They turned him into an idol to be worshipped from afar. But look deeper. He was not saying, "I am the angry tribal god named Yahweh." He was saying, "My consciousness has dissolved back into the absolute source." He was describing a state of gnosis. He was showing us what happens when the drop of water finally remembers it is the ocean. He wasn't claiming to be the only one. He was showing you what is possible for everyone. Then consider the most cryptic statement of all. Before Abraham was, "I am." Grammatically, this makes no sense. Mystically, it is the master key. He didn't say, "I was." He said, "I am." He was speaking from the eternal now. He was channeling the voice of the monad, which exists outside of linear time. He was telling us that his true identity, and yours, was not created in history. It existed before the physical universe, before the stars, before the Demiurge crafted the material world. And finally, the most dangerous coordinate he ever gave us: the kingdom of God is within you, not in a temple made of stone, not in a golden box, not in a heaven you fly to after you die. Within. If the Creator God is external, a being you must bow to, then the kingdom would be a physical place. But if the monad is pure consciousness, then the only place to find it is at the very core of your own awareness. Jesus was not trying to build a new religion. He was trying to dismantle the illusion of separation. He was the first rebel to hack the simulation and leave a backdoor open for the rest of us. But over time, the managers of this world found the back door. They couldn't close it, so they did something smarter. They built a golden cathedral in front of it and told you to stop looking. But here's the question that haunts everyone. If I am the monad, if I am this infinite source, why do I feel so small? Why am I anxious, empty, and constantly chasing validation? This is where the Gnostic teaching gets darker and much more real. Jesus didn't just teach about the light. He warned us about the rulers of this age. The Gnostics called them Archons. In modern terms, think of them as the automated programs of the Matrix. The material world, the domain of the Creator God, is not just a playground. It is an extraction system. It feeds on your emotional reaction. They don't want your worship. They want your wavelength. To these entities, your stress is food. Your anxiety is fuel. They engineer the noise of the world specifically to trigger that harvest. Notice what happens the moment you try to sit in silence. Does your mind instantly become peaceful? No, it attacks you. Suddenly, you remember an embarrassing moment from 10 years ago. You worry about a bill. You crave sugar. You check your phone. That is not just you being distracted. That is the defense mechanism of the simulation. The system is terrified of you remembering the monad. Because the moment you remember, the system can no longer feed on your energy. The God of this world wants you in a state of fear, desire, and conflict, because that is the currency of this realm. Understanding the monad isn't just a spiritual hobby. It is an act of rebellion. You are fighting against a gravity that wants to pull you back into the sleep of the ego. So how do we break the programming? How do we bypass the rulers and reconnect with the source? We don't fight them, we transcend them. But I must warn you, the protocol I am about to show you is simple, but your mind will resist it. That resistance is proof that it is working. Understanding the monad intellectually is dangerous. Why? Because your ego will take this concept, label it, store it on a shelf, and say, "Okay, I know this now," while nothing actually changes. To truly access the source, you don't need to learn more. You need to unlearn. You need to initiate a protocol of subtraction. Let's do this right now. Don't close your eyes. Stay with me. First, look at your hand. Move your fingers. Realize that this body is just a biological suit. It has changed since you were a child, and it will eventually fade away. But the you inside it remains constant. Tell yourself, I am not this body. I am the one wearing it. Next, think of your name and your job title: teacher, engineer, parent, success, failure. These are just costumes, characters in a script written by society. If you lost your memory tomorrow, the essence of you would still exist without those labels. Tell yourself, I am not my story. I am the one experiencing it. Finally, listen to the thoughts buzzing in your head, the worry about tomorrow, the regret about yesterday. Notice that you can hear them. Here is the key. If you can hear the voice in your head, you cannot be the voice. You are the listener. Now, stop. Find the silence behind the voice, that gap between thoughts, that empty, alert, vibrating stillness. It feels like nothing, doesn't it? The ego is terrified of this silence. It feels like death. But this is the monad. This is the spark of the infinite source residing in you. It has no shape, no gender, no age, no religion. It just is. When Jesus said, "The kingdom is within," he was pointing to this exact frequency. When you rest in this awareness, you are no longer a fragmented human begging for help. You are a fractal of the divine. You are the universe becoming aware of itself. The church wanted you to fill that silence with hymns and rituals, because in the noise, you are controllable. In the silence, you are sovereign. So if this truth is so liberating, why was it buried? Why did we have to wait 2,000 years to hear it? To find the answer, we must travel back to the scene of the crime. The year is 325 AD. The place, the Council of Nicaea. The Roman Emperor Constantine looked at his crumbling empire and realized he needed a glue to hold it together. He chose Christianity. But he had a problem. The Christians were not united. One group, the Gnostics, were teaching dangerous ideas. They were telling people that God is within. That salvation is a solo journey, and most importantly, that no bishop, no priest, and no emperor holds the keys to heaven. Imagine trying to build an empire on that foundation. How do you tax a man who knows he is God? How do you control an army that fears no death because they know they are eternal consciousness? You can't. A population of mystics is ungovernable. So Constantine and the church leaders made a strategic decision. It wasn't about spirituality. It was a corporate merger of church and state. They needed a god who looked like an emperor. So they elevated the angry, jealous creator god of the Old Testament to the supreme position. Why? Because a jealous god demands obedience. A jealous god needs priests to appease him. It created the perfect business model: God above, the emperor in the middle, and you, on your knees, at the bottom. The Gnostics became a threat to the monopoly. If you can access the monad directly, you cut out the middleman. You don't need the church for forgiveness. You don't need the institution for validation. You become a free agent in a system designed for subjects. So the purge began. It wasn't just a disagreement. It was an intelligence operation. They branded the knowers as heretics. They torched the libraries. The Gospel of Thomas, the secret blueprints to the monad, were thrown into the fire. But they didn't just want to burn the paper. They wanted to edit the human soul. They wanted to ensure that for generations, when you looked in the mirror, you saw a broken sinner in need of saving, never a God in need of remembering. For 600 years, The Western world suffered from spiritual amnesia. We were left with the shadow of God, the strict father figure, while the true source faded into myth. But they made one fatal mistake. They assumed that by burning the paper, they could burn the truth. But truth is like water. You can dam it up for a season, but eventually, the pressure builds. And eventually, the dam breaks. The dam is finally broken. In 1945, buried in an earthenware jar in the Egyptian desert, the lost texts resurfaced. The Gospel of Thomas spoke again. The voice of the monad returned to the world. But this isn't about history books. It is about you. You are the reason those texts survived. You are the vessel that the monad is using to wake itself up. The fact that you are watching this right now is proof that the program of the middleman is failing. The silence is calling you back. Words have power. When you speak them or write them, you pull them from the invisible world into the material world. So I want you to make a declaration right now. Go down to the comments and write this phrase to signal the end of the illusion. The ceiling is broken. Don't just type it. Feel it crashing down. Let that be the first act of your freedom. So, here is my invitation. If you felt a resonance during this transmission, if you felt that spark of recognition in your chest, then leave a mark on this digital reality. Like this video, not for the algorithm, but as a signal to other seekers that the path is open. Subscribe to join the inner circle of those who are reclaiming their heritage. But most importantly, take this secret with you into the noise of your day. Whenever you feel small, whenever you feel afraid, whenever the world tries to tell you who you are, pause, take a deep breath, and silently repeat this code to yourself. I am not the construct. I am the source. I am not the drop. I am the ocean. The monad is not out there. It is the one looking through your eyes right now. The search is over. You are already home.